Hello and welcome to my show, Critically Random. I'm Anime Critic, the creator of Critically Random, and here is my co-host.
Hi, my name's Arnold.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my podcast is trying to achieve. So, we want to give you anime news and relevant anime content, and then give you our thoughts and opinions on what it all means, or speculation and analysis as a fancier way to put it. I'm hoping to mention a lot of anime YouTubers as frequently as possible. And one of the themes that I'm sure that is going to be brought up a lot is how fan service and anime tropes is being done nowadays. It's like a hot topic of discussion. I'd like to talk about the anime industry itself, including how distribution works nowadays, and how everything has gone digital, and how everything is still adjusting to that new format. So there are a lot of streaming sites now like Netflix and Crunchyroll. Generally, this will be a critique, an anime critique and analysis podcast with a lot of banter and discussion.
Right. But still a little entertainment value too.
Yeah, definitely. This is not meant to be a lecture, like a class lecture.
We're just kind of our 2 cents as fans, you know?
Yeah, Arnold and I, we're huge anime fans for almost as long as we could remember. So that being said, why don't we just go into talking just a little bit about ourselves. So I got into anime fandom during college. I haven't really, before then, I didn't really see that much anime before I was in college. Like the most anime I really watched before then was like Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. I watched them knowing that they were anime. So, of course, when I saw Pokemon, I just thought of it as a cartoon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, during college, through friends I met and then going to lots of anime conventions, that's how I got into the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And as far as me, I've been at it for a pretty long time. I've been at it for since the mid-90s, really. My first fan subs, by the way, were actually VHS fan subs that I actually had to order by mail. And so, yeah, I've been at it for a while, and even though I haven't watched a whole lot of series this year, I still try to keep up on things. And I'm a big fan of big fan of Full Metal Alchemist. That's my jam right there.
Yeah. So it goes without saying, he's been into it a while longer than me. He's older than me. But I got into it around mid to late 2000s. But I've been catching up on some of the older anime too. So what kind of anime do you like?
Well, like I said, I like Full Metal Alchemist. I think I like any things that do something different, or at least try to do something that doesn't follow just strict tropes. Like Full Metal Alchemist does not follow like a lot of shonen tropes. It actually defies them, which is what I like, and I could get into that a whole lot, in another podcast. But that's not the point of this. So I like Full Metal Alchemist. I like Madoka Magica. I like Evangelion. Those are all things that sort of really did something different with their genres.
I like most of the anime I really like are mostly the psychological types, thrillers, some sci-fi thrown in there as well. So just to name some examples, Cowboy Bebop, Neon Genesis Evangelion, amongst newer ones, I liked I'll Know Zero, Erased. That's just to name some. So another thing that we're going to discuss, that we're going to be bringing up a lot is what anime are doing differently nowadays. So I guess this is not something that is really brought up too much in anime podcasts right now. So it's something that we want to bring up as much as we can. So speaking of anime that are doing things differently nowadays, one that was doing a lot of things differently was One Punch Man.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting show. If you don't really know anything about it, it's basically about this one hero called Saitama, who I think he did like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100. And what else did he do?
I think 100 squats.
100 squats every day for like however so many times.
And he ran a certain distance of miles per day.
And he became like a superhero. And it's called One Punch Man because he could take anyone down in one punch. And it's a very interesting show because it's not just a straight up action show. It's kind of it's almost like a satire of shonen, or at least that's how it starts out. Would you agree?
I would say so, yeah. So with that, we're just gonna go ahead and actually go into our review of One Punch Man, which that's basically the main topic of our first episode today is gonna be a review of One Punch Man.
Okay, so you want to go into like a basic breakdown of the overall plot, I guess?
Yeah.
Pretty high level.
Yeah. So. Okay, the way I would describe One Punch Man, the anime, is it's the story of Saitama, a once average Joe who trains so hard to committing his life to becoming a superhero that his hair falls out and he can defeat all his enemies with just a single punch. So, since he has become so strong, however, this has led to him becoming too easily bored and frustrated from winning all his battles. So along the way, though, Saitama meets Genos, another aspiring superhero who decides to become Saitama's pupil.
Okay, and so what do you think? So, what are your first really initial reactions to the show? Do you think it really did anything to? Did you think it really fulfilled its promise?
So my first reactions to the show really was that this was really entertaining. Words can't really do it enough justice just how entertaining at least the first half of the show was for me. I thought the art style was great. The animation quality was just really it was just outstanding. Visual eye candy is what this was.
It was really interesting because it was almost like a sort of shonen, deliberately like shonen on steroids to kind of parody shonen in a way.
That's a good way of saying it.
I think that what really did it was the design of Saitama himself was very plain, very just like, it was very cartoonish, just like a bald head, just like a very flat face. And that really that really sort of exaggerated, like his sort of complete deadpan expression throughout. He just really had this almost dead look on his face this whole time, where everyone else was doing like his like huge, like over the top muscle, like big explosion, all that kind of stuff going on. It's like, and he's just looking at it, he's like, okay, whatever, this race, and he takes those guys and just beats them in like one punch, literally.
Yeah, which made it all that much more hilarious just to see him defeat all his enemies with one punch. I think what this show really did the best, at least most of the time, was blending its wit with its humor. I think that's where One Punch Man really shined the most, aside from the animation, of course. But the blending wit and humor, I think that was the best balance it brought.
I think I have to agree with that. I think that's something that was really... It was something that was different. It was something that I have not seen in another anime that much before. Maybe something like even something like a One Piece was also similarly over the top and kind of over the top and cartoonish at the same time. But it was a very clever, almost a send up of shonen, I would say. Like there's definitely parodies of specific characters in the show. Like you could see an episode with Attack on Titan. There's a villain that looks like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, there is.
I could have sworn that there was Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter in there in some of the later episodes, and someone I thought was like from Yu Yu Hakusho. So it knows its stuff regarding shonen, and I think it's at least gets off to a very good start with these first several episodes where it's him going up against these really absurd characters. and he's also kind of an absurd character, but in the other direction, where he's just so not reacting to something completely ridiculous, you know. And so his him being able to take these people down in such over the top ways is very entertaining.
Yeah, the only other anime I could think of to compare this one in recent years would be like Kill la Kill, and where this anime and that anime are both fighting anime, fighting type anime that are also satires in their own right, but. I guess I would have to say the main difference with One Punch Man and Kill la Kill would have to be was that Kill la Kill seemed to be flipping the genre on its own head, almost kind of deconstructing it in its own way from what I saw when I was watching it. One Punch Man is also a satire, but it seemed to it was still relying more on just the humor aspects overall.
It wasn't subverting anything really. It was just like making fun of, poking fun at things.
Poking fun, yeah.
And it just kind of by taking it to the over the top extreme. Like this is it's so weird to think of it in this terms, but this is a really violent show.
Yeah, which is kind of weird considering, the content is pretty ultra violent, but it's just done in such a way that it's forgivable.
It's almost so over the top that you can't even like. I think there's some stuff that he does with the crab guy, like he pulls out his eyes and other things like that. But it's kind of cartoonish and over the top. That it doesn't gross you out. In fact, it just makes it even funnier and crazier at the same time.
Yeah, despite all the ultra violence and over the topness it exudes, it is very forgivable just because of how well done it is.
Yeah, I would say, but I think you would agree, anime critic, that this is kind of a lot of the praise we're heaping on it is kind of limited to the first half of the show. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah. Which is a shame. And another aspect to the show that I really enjoyed, that I think really helped pull it along too, was just the voice acting. Especially between Saitama and Genos, not necessarily just them, their individual voice acting, but when they actually had some dialogue between the two of them.
Now, just to be clear, you are talking about the Japanese version here. Is there a dub of this even?
As of now, I don't really know, but I know it is on Netflix.
But yeah, the Netflix version, that's the one I watched. That's it.
The Netflix version is only in Japanese, so that's really the only version that I think everyone really is going to see it in.
Yeah, but it's just for clarification, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the voice acting?
Yeah. So the Japanese voice acting between Saitama and Genos, I just thought was hilarious, just because it has such a wit to it, where it's like you could tell that when Genos was always trying to confide in Saitama, that Saitama really could care less about Genos' problems, and I just thought the delivery of that was really funny.
Yeah. So who's Genos? He's like his other protege that Saitama takes on, right? He's a cyborg. He has his own powers as well, right?
Yeah. He's a cyborg, and at first, the way he comes off is he seems like he's going to be a rival for Saitama, and I think from what I remember, I think that is how he is first presented, but then he decides to become Saitama's pupil, and then it seems like Genos is going to play off of Saitama like his comic relief sidekick. But Genos ends up being so much more than just a comical a comical sidekick, really. I mean, he is that, but you know what's interesting is that he really is the only character amongst the heroes who really just gets fleshed out the most.
Yeah.
We see the most character progression compared to all the other characters that gets introduced.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about Saitama, not Saitama, about Genos, is that he's so earnest. He takes things so seriously. He really wants to be a great hero and enact revenge upon those who I think killed his family. Correct?
I think I don't exactly remember if his family was killed then.
But he was trying to enact revenge on those who did that, and he's such a serious guy, so passionate about this, and he kind of doesn't really get why. Like, he's kind of befuddled by this completely non-serious guy like Saitama, who just kind of takes a lot of things in stride, and yet is so powerful, and he's trying to figure out his secret. You know what I mean? Like, what's his secret? How did he get like this? And he talks about he just did that the 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, whatever, that training they went through, and he's like, and Genos is like, oh, okay, that's a standard, really intensive training. That's kind of he's trying to really understand Saitama here. I thought that's really interesting because he is so serious, so earnest.
Yeah, I would like to talk more, about getting a little bit more into the dynamic of Genos and Saitama, but I think we should save that for the spoiler section of the review.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, but we are going to talk about some other aspects to it while we're still on the main review. So I personally enjoyed the first 6 episodes, mostly for all the reasons I just stated. Plus, I just thought the monster battles in the first 6 episodes were really great in the way that they were kept simple, and yet they packed just enough punch, no pun intended, to be entertaining and just funny.
And the designs are great too. Each one of them looked really different.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Yeah, the design in this show was superb.
There was the basically the Attack on Titan character. There was the insect lady, right? The insects. Yeah. There was one that was like the giant crab guy I mentioned earlier. There's like a few other. There were like these animal hybrid characters. Every single episode had something that was a little different about the villain. Yeah. So in the first 6 or so episodes, the show definitely had kind of like a Monster of the Week kind of feel to it. Kind of how they formatted it for the most part, anyway. But then in the second half, from about episode 7 and on, the format of this show just really changes drastically. And that's kind of where what we consider the main plot takes over, and that's generally where the overall plot would take. See, this series felt kind of odd to me because when Anime Critic, I was talking to Anime Critic about doing this series, and then I think we were having this conversation of where I was in the series, how much further I was on. I was like, and that's when I kind of realized that I didn't know it at that point, but I didn't know I was almost done with the show. Yeah, it wasn't really until I brought up to him that the anime is just 12 episodes. I thought it was a 26 episode show, and it felt it felt paced like a 26 episode show. Which is what it should have been, in my opinion. At least 24 to 26 episodes. So just to get into the main reasons why why me and Arnold was more let down by the second half was I felt that the tones in the second half of the series were getting too serious, and part of that had to do was because of all the world building that the show was presenting to us, with introducing to us with
introducing us to a hero association, and this is a very minor spoiler if you haven't seen the show yet. This isn't really spoiling anything big, but just minor spoiler. A hero association, and then a grander overarching plot that there's an extraterrestrial threat being thrown at the way of these characters, and it can definitely get overwhelming trying to keep up with all these all this world building and all these new aspects of this show being introduced in every single episode from episode 7 on, where there's all these new heroes and they're all side characters or minor characters, and yet in the hero association there's like at least 2 of them, I think, who are like the authorities in the association, and there's some there's some like secret conversations or ambiguous type conversations that they're having with each other about this overarching threat that is looming on them. And I don't really think it's until about episode 10 until we actually are presented with what this overlooming threat is, which are these aliens. And the aliens, when they show up, it reminded me of the first Avengers movie.
And it was if the last couple episodes definitely felt different than the first 2 episodes of the show.
Yes, yeah.
Not necessarily bad, but they were different. There's not the same show I started watching.
Yeah, and I hate to compare it with an American blockbuster franchise, The Avengers, but at this point I can't help myself just because of just how much it really did remind me of that first movie particularly, where an ET threat, which is threatening all planet Earth, and a bunch of superheroes now have to come into the forefront to put a stop to it.
And they had to learn how to work together.
And that too. So there were 2 major aliens, and you know what? We should probably just save that for the talking about that in the spoiler section.
Okay, fair enough.
But I only really have I think I only really have one last thing to say for the non-spoiler section. Mm-hmm. Part of this review is basically, by the time we had gotten into towards the end of the show, without really spoiling anything, the whole glossy art style in the show, to me, was actually starting to get distracting at times, since the show had shifted towards a more serious tone. And because of that, it made me stop relating to the characters as being more believable.
Right.
To be more believable as opposed to more fictional.
Right. It definitely shifted. It at some point went into basically straight up just shonen instead of shonen parody, right?
Yeah, which is kind of a shame.
And because even into the last episode, even into the second half with the superhero stuff, it still kept the parody elements because I have to admit, one point I disagree with you is I like some of the supporting characters, some of the new superheroes that were introduced. I think the ideas behind them are great. Like there's potential there. I can't deny that. I just find it hilarious that there's the writer character, something writer. But I found out that the name in Japanese basically means like public, basically means like public domain writer. It's supposed to be parody of common writer, but its name channel is like public domain writer, like not copyrightable named writer. So I thought that was actually very clever. Some of the other hero parodies, like the gay Sailor Moon parody, was pretty entertaining.
He's more familiar with shonen series than I am.
So a lot of these different things. I think I just want to pack some characters that are like like a Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, maybe someone from like a Yu Yu Hakusho. So I kind of appreciated the references at least to these other shonen characters, at least in these supporting heroes, which I liked. As far as my take on the second half goes, I sort of disagree with the anime critic a little bit in the sense that I felt like it started getting lost. And like I said, the pacing was off. It just felt like it was being paced for a 26 episode series, and I thought that at that point it was something I was excited for when they introduced the superhero agency or whatever, superhero association, and I think what the problem is that they introduced that and they rushed in the alien stuff, and then that was it. That was kind of my problem with it, because I think that I would have liked it if they introduced a superhero agency earlier, like maybe episode 3 or something.
That would have made more sense since they were already going in that direction anyway. It definitely would have made more sense if they had introduced that hero association much earlier on, like by the third or fourth episode.
It would have felt like a more gradual thing, because even when you're doing that, you can still play with a genre, you can still play with tropes of shonen, and you can play with even more by introducing these other parodies of other shonen characters. But then I have to agree with him about the alien thing. It felt very shoehorned in. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like it was part of the same series I was watching.
It really didn't.
It was just a straight up action show at that point, with some of those characters that I liked. So I think that it can lead us into the spoiler section, because I don't know if there's anything else we could really talk about spoiler stuff at this point. So
I've said everything I wanted to say for the non-spoiler part of this. So okay, so segueing now, if you haven't seen One Punch Man, you might want to stop listening now and then come back to this later once you actually have watched the anime. So now we're gonna be going spoilerific here and spoiling the heck out of everything we've been talking about.
Okay, so what do you think of the ending?
Well, let's just back up one or two notes before we straight up get to the ending.
Okay,
and talk about what we appreciated and didn't appreciate within spoiler territory. So one of the aspects that I also appreciated from this show within spoiler territory would be I thought it was funny how they classed Genos and Saitama. Once they did register for the Hero Association, Saitama got a Class C hero and Genos got Class S. So this is really funny considering Saitama, he's stronger than all of them, but he got a Class C, and Genos, he got a Class S.
And that's kind of a hero or a hero trope or shonen trope too. That there's that the hero that that we know is super powerful, but everyone else completely underestimates. I think like Claymore did this. I think Claire was like the main character of the show was the lowest ranked Claymore of her generation, for instance. And people like Dragon Ball Z, they're always constantly underestimating Goku. So that's kind of a trope that they introduced here, and I do like that. I do like the way they use that when the hero has something to prove.
Yeah. The other part about why this was also so funny, why Saitama got a Class C from this superhero association, is the fact that the authority figures weren't really thrilled with, or just not really too fond of Saitama's general attitude of how arrogant he really was.
Yeah, I believe he got the C because he got like an A or got the best score ever on like the physical stuff, but didn't he like basically fail the exam or something like that, or the essay?
Yeah, he failed at least one of the crucial exams. Genos did well in pretty much everything.
Yeah. he's more of the prototypical hero. Like he's the more the character that would be like the hero in most shows.
Yeah, and we get a look at. We got to look at what some of the other heroes are thinking, at least in brief snippets throughout the episodes, mostly in the second half. Like, we get to see a little bit about how they think towards Saitama, and even a little bit Genos too, I think. But again, this was all very rushed and kind of muddled, so I guess that's really why I'm having a hard time really even just stitching together my own thoughts of it, just because of how sporadic and rushed everything was.
I felt like they could have been doing more with the superhero association, but I think that 6 episodes, or really 3 episodes, because the last 3 episodes were just about the major alien threat, wasn't really enough. I wanted to see him work his way through it, sort of make the alliances within the superhero association, and I kind of wanted to make that more part of the plot. At least that's what I would have wanted.
Yeah. So with that, you want to just go right into talking about the last 2 episodes?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We'll go right into the last couple episodes. Why don't you get us started?
Okay, so at least in a semi-redeeming way, I overall was entertained by these last 2 episodes. Again, not as enthusiastic as I was watching the first half, but probably just at least slightly more entertained.
There was a lot of action. There was a lot of stuff blowing up.
There was a lot. There was plenty going on.
Yeah.
So much so, so much to process that I ended up rewatching those last 2 episodes, because I honestly felt, after just my first viewing, I felt like I had missed something.
It was almost like the first half, or the first 9 episodes or whatever, it didn't have enough plot, and then like it had too much.
Too much
and
going on.
I don't even know who the aliens are right now.
Yeah, we're wondering who are these aliens.
I don't know what's going on with it. I do like the idea of there was one thing I do like about it, was that the other characters actually were useful, which doesn't happen in a whole lot of shonen, where like the characters other than the main character actually got to do something.
Yeah, and that did kind of throw me off, because in the last within the last 3 episodes, aside from just generally talking about the last 2, but in the last 3 or 4 episodes, I was noticing that these other side heroes, side characters who are heroes, that they were given a lot to do. I can't deny, and yet it's just I wasn't emotionally invested in them. So every time it was showing them doing something like that seemed important to the plot, I just didn't really care about it, because I was always preferring to see Saitama and Genos.
They weren't really characters. They were sort of parodies or character types. They were really characters, which I appreciate it from the perspective of being a parody of shonen, but we didn't. Once you sort of stop doing that and kind of take them more seriously, it's like there's not really a lot to them. You know what I mean? The only one I thought was actually something of a character was the writer guy. The one who was, I kind of appreciate the fact that he knew his limitations. he totally respected the fact that he was never going to be an class A fighter. He was going to be a decent class B fighter. It's like he totally understood that.
Yeah, and the other thing that did kind of bother me. It bothered me a good deal, actually. Towards the end, I think they introduced it in either episode 10 or 11. Was the reveal of this overarching alien threat was based off a prophecy.
Yeah, that's
And that just really, literally came out of nowhere, completely out of the blue. And I was just like, are they really going down this road?
And it didn't seem to tie into anything that the show was trying to do before. Like if it was, let's say, parodying, I don't know, like this, like if they're doing something like the character were like the Saiyan invasion from Dragon Ball Z, that was that kind of alien invasion, and they were directly doing something that was straight out of another shonen, or like the characters are sort of representing like Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. And if they introduced that at that point late in the game, that would still work that would still fit, because it was still kind of doing this homage to shonen that they were doing before. You know what I mean? But this is like this sort of generic alien race thing that kind of comes up at this last second and doesn't really inform anything as far as what the rest of the show was doing. It doesn't really, it's not really supported by the rest of the show in the sense. Even though, again, the action was well done, I thought the character designs were really good.
Yeah.
But I think it would have made more sense, even if it was introduced in this late game. It should have tied into what the show was kind of going for, in these first several episodes. What the show was seemed to be about heroes, about shonen heroes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, like if you want to do it, then make them parodies of the Saiyans. Something like that. I think that would have worked better.
Yeah. I mean, okay, one thing that we have a disadvantage of is that we didn't read the manga. Neither of us read it. And so for the ones who did, for those of you out there who are listening to this and who may have, I would think that you probably are understanding this plot much better than the two of us are. Mm-hmm. But again, I have to argue that there was just too much world building going on for this 12 episode series, and 12 episodes really just isn't enough if you're gonna do if you're gonna introduce all these new aspects this late in the game, just like Arnold was saying.
And even if you're introducing a new aspect, if that aspect fits into the feel of what you're doing before, it's fine. But this did not. This felt like it felt like a generic alien threat.
Yeah, it did feel too generic.
And if it was still playing with shonen tropes like the first few episodes were doing, but you did introduce this thing at the last second, I would have bought it a little better.
Yeah, the most I took from the alien threat, and the most I really did understand from it, was by the last episode where or actually it was the end of the second to last episode. So it must have been, it was at the end of episode 11 and then fleshed out in episode 12 where Lord Boros, the final boss villain of the aliens, because I remember during those last two episodes there was a lot of fighting going on between one other alien, which I can't remember the name of that one, with the other heroes, and then Lord Boros being the final boss type villain, and Saitama, where Lord Boros was making a really grand statement and just making a huge point being driven across, that he traveled across the galaxy to find basically find a formidable opponent, which would be like his equivalent, and just to take on in fighting, and that happened to be Saitama. So Saitama was the most formidable opponent that he could find, traveling something like 20 Earth years across the galaxy. Mm-hmm. So that ended up being the main reason as to why he even came to Earth in the first place. So so oddly enough, in that in just that aspect, this element that was introduced like literally right at the end of the show, where now we're just now finding out about why this this final boss type villain, what his reasons and motives are for wreaking havoc on Earth and trying to find Saitama. Oddly enough, kind of callback to some of the tones and themes from the earlier half of the show, which was more just a parody. But this felt this just still felt forced, I'm gonna have to say.
Right. I did enjoy the over-the-top final attack that Lord Bosch tried to inflict on Saitama. That was actually kind of so absurd that that was very entertaining.
Yeah,
it was so ridiculous. It was so long. It was like and it's like, oh my god, this is that's kind of what the last few episodes was missing. Like that kind of ridiculously over the top final battle, like final attack thing that was so absurd that that was the first clever thing I saw in the last couple of episodes, because it was making fun of that of those ridiculous final attacks that a lot of shonen heroes or villains have. But again, that was just in the middle of other. It's a very standard action heavy episode, which is okay, but it's not what I signed on for. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like him, I was entertained by that final fight. Again, the animation was great as always, and I enjoyed watching it. But everything that it stood for was just taken way too seriously, in my opinion. So it really did kind of take out a little bit of the fun to it, just because of how seriously they were taking it. Another thing, about the last episode, which I found somewhat pointless, was the Metal Knight character that was introduced. Oh, right.
Yeah, because at first he was introduced as to be kind of like this mystery where one of the heroes, and I think it might have been I think it was a Class A hero, warned Genos to stay away from the Metal Knight. And then later on in the episode, we find out the purpose of the Metal Knight. But his by the time we find out his purpose, to me, his purpose was confusing.
It was like taking alien technology, right? Taking the alien technology and sort of upgrading.
Yeah, something like that. His mission was to upgrade the alien technology.
When he said something like that, I thought he was somehow involved with the aliens, and that there was some kind of cool thing there. But it had nothing to do with that, and it set up something that did not pay off at all.
Yeah. His purpose, the way it was described, was his mission was to create powerful weapons for the aliens, and I guess continuously upgrade them. And then it also said it was mentioned at the very end of the episode. Was that I think he salvaged the alien ship.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, okay, I understood why he was put there, but I just didn't see too much of a point.
I have to agree. It felt they were so building up to nothing when they did that, and I don't know. Is there more of this in the manga? Is it leading?
Too much planting, not enough payoff. At least not for us.
Yeah, because I understand that there's other things that are more explained in the manga, but I think Anime Critic and I would agree that anime has to stand on its own. It can't just be
should, yeah.
You can't say, oh, it explains this in the manga. Well,
there are plenty of anime out there, that Arnold and Hyatt have seen that are based off manga, but they stand on their own. There really is no excuse to have an anime that needs to be tied in with reading a manga. The anime should be able to stand on its own. Mm-hmm. So I guess the last thing I really could say to close this review off at last is that post-credit scene. I found enjoyable.
Wait, I missed the post-credit scene. Okay.
You did? Oh. So,
Okay, I didn't even know it was there.
okay,
So go ahead, man.
Okay, well, to my surprise, I'm not only going to describe the post-credit scene to you listeners out there, but I'll be describing it for Arnold. The post-credit scene... The post-credit scene was... It returned to its more campy feel of the first half of the series, in the way that it showed us a dragon level threat monster, again, terrorizing the city, and Saitama, he just appears out of nowhere, and the dragon level threat monster called itself Pluton. So Saitama, he just comes out of nowhere, does a superhero thing like he usually does, and he defeats the monster with just one punch. And as soon as Saitama defeats the monster, he shouts out, back to one punch again. God damn it. And I just cracked up.
That actually sounds really funny. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, you definitely at least need to check it out on YouTube or something.
Yeah. It's on Net. I was watching on Netflix. I guess I'll just go past the credits this time.
How many times did you watch that last episode?
Just twice. I just missed at each time. The credits ran, and I thought that was it.
Yeah, I don't blame you for. By the time the credits rolling, I felt pretty finished with the anime itself myself, and I kind of just ended up, out of curiosity, I just scrolled my mouse over that bar just to see, is there going to be anything else after the credits? Because I've gotten pretty used to the concept of that they're gonna tease an extra scene after the credits in anime. They're doing this a lot now.
I probably should have known better, because my favorite series, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, does it all the time. They have it's not even 10 seconds. They have 2-minute scenes afterwards, 2-3 minute scenes after the credits. So I should have known better.
Yeah. And I lied about wrapping it up there. So there actually will be at least one or two more points. Two more points I'd like to touch upon before finally actually wrapping this whole thing up. Before Arnold and I give our last overall thoughts of the show in general, I thought it would be I thought to make a nice shout out to a YouTuber, Pause and Select, for his One Punch Man video review. I should be able to have a link posted underneath our episode, but basically just to give a little, a little summary or tease of his review, is that he mentions that none of the characters in One Punch Man really seem to have any true progression other than Genos, which I absolutely agree with. And get a load of this, because of the show's length. So it was only 12 episodes, and again, I couldn't agree more with that. Pause and Select, he goes on to say that Saitama just seems that he's bored throughout the series, and all the other heroes are introduced and yet never really given enough time to be fleshed out. And overall, Pause and Select, the way he describes where the true strength of Essence in the show is that it relies heavily on its visual presentation rather than character progression, which I'm gonna have to agree with. I think he makes a really good point when he says that. But if I may, I'm just gonna have to add and counter to that statement that if you really are going to introduce all these side characters and do all this world building, like I had previously said, you really need to spend more time in the world. And the only way to really just do that is make your show longer. And, visual presentation, no matter how short the show is, visual presentation wouldn't be enough to suffice that. So that's really where One Punch Man suffers the most. So with that, you know, in my own closing statements of this series is that this show should have been should have at least been 24 episodes. But you know, they didn't go down that route. They decided to do more world building. You know, gave us this, you know, mysterious alien threat, and threw at us a mysterious prophecy to kind of explain it, which seemed pointless because it seemed like then they just gave us a reason as to why Lord Boros came to Earth to look for Saitama in the first place. They gave us a more realistic explanation anyway. So then what was the point of there being a mysterious prophecy behind all of this? So again, you know, just overstuffing, you know, all this world building and this mysterious threat. The anime just should have been longer. If it was doing this, it should have been longer, but it wasn't. So,
right. I have to agree. It's though I generally like I like the ideas, and I like better than I like the execution. At least as far as after the. I love the first 6 episodes. Just straight up love the first 6 episodes. I like the ideas in the second half better than the actual execution. And I have to agree that has a lot to do with pacing. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a 24 episode show. That's one way to go with it. But I think that if they just introduced those ideas earlier, like the superhero associated maybe in episode 4 or something like that instead of episode 7, and then introduce the greater threat. And it does something different with a greater threat. I think it would have been a much better show. I think it's a show with a lot of promise. I think that it did deliver on that promise to some degree, but not as much as I really wanted.
Yeah, well said. Okay, guys. Well, that was our review of One Punch Man in our first episode of this anime. It came out in 2015. There will be a second season. When? That is to be determined. But we hope you enjoyed listening to this review. We're going to take a break now, but please stick around for our last segment of the show. We will be doing our own first reaction impression of the announced Cowboy Bebop live action TV series. What a hoot that's going to be.
Yeah.
And we're back. Okay, so now in our last part of our first episode of Critically Random, Arnold and I, we're going to share our first impressions of this announcement for a Cowboy Bebop live action TV series.
And so what are your thoughts about this? I'm very mixed on this whole thing. I don't know really what to think.
Yeah, right now I'm pretty much on that same boat where it's like I don't really know how to feel about it. I'm pretty mixed as well. I'm hopeful yet pretty cautious. That's the best way to put it. I honestly always thought and hoped that Cowboy Bebop would just be made as a live action movie, and even then I would still be cautiously optimistic. But it would have set up my expectations more realistically in some fashion, as opposed to a TV series where it's like, nah, I really don't know how to feel about this.
Mm-hmm. Because I think the problem with making it into a TV series is that how do you just not straight up remake episodes wholesale and just be like the same show but not animated? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when you and me were talking a little bit, the first time we ever talked about this on the phone, it seemed like you had some high hopes for it in the regard that this could follow like the footsteps of Firefly in some way.
Right. I think that's kind of the roadmap you would use if you want to adapt. If you want to make that kind of adaptation, because it is also like a space western, like Firefly was, because Firefly and is really really very much parallels another anime called Outlaw Star, which came out at the same time as Cowboy Bebop. Like, at the same time, there was like these three anime of like of sci-fi, like space opera, sort of sci-fi western anime, which is like Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop and Trigun. This all happened at the same time.
The big three.
Yeah, and so I think that following Firefly, which to a lot of people really paralleled Outlaw Star, is kind of a way to take a look at how to adapt an anime into live action. Even though technically speaking, Firefly is not an adaptation of Outlaw Star, it just really parallels it in a number of ways, and I think that there are some things that you could really do interesting in live action Cowboy Bebop. I think that I really have a problem with the idea again of why a television show. Because it feels like I would be down for a live action Cowboy Bebop movie with the right people behind it. And that's another thing I need to get into, is that I don't really know who's making this. I mean, I know their names, but I don't know what they've done too much. Like I believe one of them is a producer on Prison Break. Another of them is a comic book writer who wrote a number of issues of X-Men. He wrote Thor: The Dark World. None of that, while none of that's necessarily a negative, none of that screams to me that these are the people who need to make Cowboy Bebop. If I wanted to get someone who's already exists in Hollywood to make a Cowboy Bebop, I would go for like a Tarantino. I mean, you're not going to get a Tarantino for a TV show, but that is a kind of experience person I want to take a look at it, or like a Robert Rodriguez. Because Tarantino and Rodriguez are giant inspirations for Cowboy Bebop to begin with. I think the first episode of Cowboy Bebop is basically an homage to Desperado. I could go into that great detail into that, but that'll be for another podcast. So I think, or someone like that, or someone like a Steven Soderbergh, who works in that kind of Elmore Leonard crime genre sort of milieu, who did movies like Out of Sight and Ocean's 11. I think that they would be, or someone who works in that style would be a great fit for Cowboy Bebop, because it really is that style. Or even Joss Whedon, who did Firefly. But these other people, I don't know who they are. You know what I mean? I don't know what they have to offer. I don't know if they have I hope they do. I hope they have a great vision for it. But I really have no idea what direction they're gonna go with this.
Yeah, I basically have to agree with everything you just said there. I read the names, so I'm not really familiar. I'm not too familiar with their work either. I did watch Thor: The Dark World. I seem to be one of the very, very few people on the planet that enjoyed that movie. I might be more familiar with his comic book credits, that screenwriter who wrote Thor: The Dark World and the upcoming Thor: Ragnarok, which at the time of this recording still hasn't released yet. But I might be a little more familiar with some of his comic book.
I got them right here. He wrote for 2002. He wrote Wolverine and the X-Men. That's an anime show he wrote for. He wrote a number of episodes of New X-Men. He wrote the X-23 number of X-23 series.
Which new X-Men did he do?
New X-Men from number 20 onward.
I meant what year? Because there was two versions of. There was New X-Men, there was all New X-Men. Was it just?
This is just New X-Men. There's all this shown here. And
Really? He wrote some of that?
Yeah. So, right here. So he wrote they took over writing chores as of issue 20 on the new X-Men title. And that's why
wow.
he brought it. He's the one who brought in X-23 apparently.
Oh, okay. Interesting. If that's the same new X-Men that I read, then that's pretty interesting. Again, I don't know if he would be, like Arnold said, my ideal choice to go to for that's, screaming out loud like, oh, this person has to be one of the writers on a live action Cowboy Bebop TV show, but okay, I mean...
Interesting. He apparently he co-created X-23, which I didn't realize. Interesting.
Yeah, and he co-created the X-23 character. So it sounds like there is some interesting potential that has been brought to the table here. They plucked at least one of the writers. I don't know if is he going to be the head writer or is he just one of the writers?
It says that where is this right here? It says that he's going to write the adaptation, which I don't know what that means because it's a TV show. It's not just one script.
Yeah, so that could mean...
I assume he's going to write the pilot, I guess?
So that could mean either one of two things. He's going to write the whole outline of like how their first season will go and write a few episodes here and there, or just solely be the one to write the pilot.
And that will soon be on the staff for the rest of the show.
Yeah. And either of those positions could go in two very different directions.
Mm-hmm. And but other people like there's Prison Break, shows called Aquarius, Good Behavior shows. I've never even heard of those shows, so I don't know. They might be brilliant, but like I said, I don't know. But my bigger question is why a TV show? Because it feels like it feels very easily. It feels like it would be very easy to slide into just remaking the show episode by episode, like just doing the same thing,
Yeah, which that would be, I don't know, that would be a quirk in of itself if they just directly copycatted the anime episodes onto live action. Like even I am leery and kind of dreadful of seeing something like that.
I can't think
just because we already we already saw it before done so well in the anime that if they did it in live action format and it just didn't come off even nearly as good as it was done the first time, it's definitely not gonna hit well at home for me and many others, I'm sure.
And I'm trying to think of a really good. There have been anime that have been adapted to live action TV series, at least in Japan, like the live action anime that have become live action J dramas. But
I feel like those make more sense because that's still in the context of Japanese culture.
Right, and even then there are things like there are some things you could do with the atmosphere. You could but like they're also those shows are not Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, that's the other thing about that separates Cowboy Bebop is it's an anime that really has a Western flair, and this has been said time and time again. It's almost really like Shinichiro Watanabe, the director of Bebop. It's really almost as if he made the anime for an American audience, like even more than for an audience in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Right, and but as far as like the live action adaptation, like there's some things that I've seen shows, like I saw the both the anime version and the live action adaptation of Hellgirl, and there were some things that you could do when you want to do horror. There's something like you could create atmosphere, you could create jump scares in a way that in live action that really it doesn't really plays differently. Like horror plays differently in live action versus animation. Like if you want, like would the anime version of The Ring be quite as creepy? I'm not sure it would be. It would be very different. So I think that, but when you're doing like a space opera, I don't know if that difference would necessarily be there. You know what I mean? Because Like there's not as much. There's not as much you can play with in terms of the style with Cowboy Bebop, because Cowboy Bebop is just a defined style.
Yeah, I think the only way they could try to make it work is they're gonna have to write totally original episodes. Maybe have some episodes be more similar to the anime episodes, like probably the episodes involving Spike's past with him and Vicious. That plot line they probably should keep, because that ended up being the overarching plot of the show. But everything else, which is the majority of Cowboy Bebop, which are all the other episodes that are not dealing with the overarching plot of Spike's past, I think that they're gonna have to be completely originally written episodes that stand on their own.
Right.
And the only similarity, other than the characters and the setting, in the universe of Bebop, is it's gonna have to retain the same spirit of Bebop.
Right, and I think that's also kind of a problem, because to me the appeal of Bebop was never the Spike, Vicious, Julia storyline. That was kind of cool, but what kept me going back was the other episodes actually. Was like
yeah, and I consider myself a pretty big fan of Cowboy Bebop myself. And I really, really liked the whole Spike, Vicious, and Julia plot line that they had going on. But yeah, even I can't deny a lot of my favorite episodes, and really what made Cowboy Bebop stand out the most were the other episodes that were just original episodes that stood on their own.
Yeah, you go from like a spaghetti, like the first episode is basically a spaghetti western, and it goes into like then it might go into, there's episodes that rip off. There's an episode that that parodies basically Alien. It almost is Alien.
Yeah. Toys in the Attic.
Yeah, Toys in the Attic. And there's another one that's where they all get high on the whole episode. They get high on shrooms.
It's pretty some funny
that
stuff.
That has like I saw that has like a blaxploitation element to that one too. I think so. Look at that. So and then you have like the you got the Spike and Vicious stuff, which is very much Hong Kong action, like a little bit more kind of has like they had that shootout in the church. It's very like John Woo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All the episodes that focused on Ed or her past, and episodes that took a closer look at Faye Valentine. Yeah, those episodes were really great because they were brilliantly written. And also Jet, looking into his past. What else? There's just so many great things.
Because this is why I always felt that from the beginning, I always felt that Quentin Tarantino would have been the guy to make the adaptation of Cowboy Bebop into a movie. Because if you watch Pulp Fiction is not about the plot. Pulp Fiction is so not about the plot that basically mixes up the whole plot. It tells everything in a different order. So it's all about the characters and about the character arcs, and that's what they go, and that's what it's all about. And that's what I feel like Cowboy Bebop is about largely. It's about the character interactions, not the main overarching plot. You know what I mean? So I feel like it also, because of the stylistic elements, that's very Tarantino in this show. Like they borrow from the same they borrow from the same things, like spaghetti westerns, Hong Kong action, Bruce Lee movies, like film noir. And so that's why I felt like he would be the best guy to adapt it, or him or Robert Rodriguez, because again the first episode is straight up Desperado.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be interesting to see Cowboy Bebop translated into a TV series, but it has to be handled with extreme care, because we wouldn't want it to detract too much away from the source material. We've already gotten other space crew type related shows like Firefly and Star Trek. We don't want to see any kind of copycat of that or any kind of gimmick playing off of that. This is really going to have to retain the spirit of Cowboy Bebop. I can't stress that enough. Just to give a shout out to another YouTuber, Super Eye Patch Wolf, mentioned in his video why you should watch Cowboy Bebop. He described Cowboy Bebop as ultimately not about discovering who you truly are, but it's about pushing along to continue forward in life, no matter how weird it gets or what you might see. I'll try to have a link to his video below our episode.
So we're kind of wrapping up our thoughts on Cowboy Bebop here. I don't know if there's anything else to say at this point because there's so little information out there other than the names of the people involved and the fact that it's a TV show. So other than that, is there anything else you need to add at this point about the show or about anything else you want to add to the podcast right now?
No, not really.
Okay, I think that takes care of our first episode. I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, I had fun doing this. Hopefully Arnold and I we're going to be doing this more often. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So I'm the Anime Critic.
And my name is Arnold, aka Hawkflame. Find me on YouTube, Everything Geek, aka Hawkflame. And I think we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we hope you keep listening. Bye for now.
Go on, say, go. Just use, 進行、問答、